Hi, it's Amy from My Sewing Box, and today I'm going to talk to you all about rotary cutters, these little babies. So a lot of you might have seen them on Sewing Bee or heard about them, and you don't know what they are or how you can use them, so I'm going to show you. So these are what they look like. They come in various designs. These Ulfa yellow ones are quite popular, but I quite like my Fiscus one because it looks really pretty. So basically the parts of it are, you have a little safety kind of cap here with a button that you slide up and down to slide the safety cap on and off, and then you have a very sharp blade in here. So the standard size, which these two are, is a 45mm. Usually that will do for most projects. You can get smaller ones that are about 18mm, which if you're doing really sharp curves might be useful, but on the whole these will do for most projects. So the essentials you need to rotary cut is you've got to have a cutting mat to protect your work surface, because they're so sharp you're just going to carve up your table if you don't have one. You can use any size. If you're doing rotary cutting for dressmaking, I'd recommend getting a larger mat, this sort of size, because your pattern pieces are going to be bigger. But if you're doing quilting or smaller projects, then a smaller one would be fine. And so I'll show you how you use it. So you take a bit of material. So if you're going to do it for smaller bits of fabric like quilting, you would normally also get what we call a quilting grid or a ruler. You can either get them in sort of ruler shapes like rectangles to use, or you can also get pre-cut templates in different shapes, so like triangles, diamonds, etc. And these basically help you follow a straight line on your work. So you would place it over where you want to cut. You can align to the lines on your mat, which all have measurements on them, either inches or centimetres. Then you undo the safety guard and be really careful. You don't want your fingers anywhere near the blade if you can help it. You need to press down on your ruler, and then you push, so you line up the blade against the edge of the ruler, and then you want to apply a firm pressure but not too hard, and cut. And this is important that you do it away from you for your own safety, because if it suddenly runs away from you, that doesn't matter. You don't want it running to you with a very sharp blade. So what you do is, you can feel it cut as you go. Make sure you put your safety back on when you put it down, and then you've cut your straight line. Now if you find that your ruler is slipping around a bit, you can get things called ruler grips that stick onto your ruler. You can also get a ruler grip spray that you can spray underneath to give it a bit more grip, so you're not sliding around so much. And they're really good for if you're doing patchwork and quilting. But if you're going to use it for dressmaking, which they did a lot in Sewing Bee, you're kind of doing it freehand. So what you would do is you take your bit of fabric, you take your pattern, but I'm just going to use a bit of paper for this purpose. You would pin your pattern onto your piece of fabric, and then I'm going to stand up because I find it easier doing it stood up. Once again, you go around the edges, and so if I wanted to leave a seam allowance, I'd leave a little gap. If I want to go exactly around the edge, I'll go exactly around the edge, and again cut away from you. So just a gentle amount of pressure, and it's a bit more difficult doing it freehand because you've got to have a lot more control. And so you can just cut around the edges. Sometimes you might need to go over it once or twice. If your blade is a bit older, it might be slightly blunt in some places, or if your mat's a bit well worn like mine is, then that can happen as well. So the main thing to remember as well when you're doing it on a pattern is that don't try and cut at an awkward angle like this, because you're going to cut into your own arm. You're better off moving yourself around or moving the pattern around, so you're always cutting away from yourself and you're never getting into trouble with it. So I'll just cut that bit off. And then again, this time I'm going to move it around with me. Now you might find it takes a bit of getting used to discover what amount of pressure you need to use. So that's my pattern piece. Some people kind of push too hard, some people don't push hard enough. It's kind of just getting into your own rhythm. And then if you want to do things like curves, then you've just got to go more freehand. You can do it quite easily. And this is where rotary cutters really come into their own, is that you can cut curves much easier than you could with scissors, because you're not lifting up the fabric as you go, so your cutting can be a lot more accurate, which is why a lot of people like to use a rotary cutter. And then if you're having issues with your cutter, it's quite often because your blade has got a bit blunt, so we'd recommend that you just change the blade. You can buy replacement packs like these, so you can get them in singles or usually packs of 10, and then just very carefully swap the blade over. So to do that, you just unscrew this from the end, this little nut, and then you can take them out and replace the blade that way. But you just need to be really careful that you're not touching the edge of the blade, because even if it's has been blunted, it will be really sharp. And that's really all it takes to do rotary cutting. So if you fancy giving it a go, get yourself a cutter and a mat and give it a try.